When Nadine Chen handed that key card to the tall stranger in the baseball cap, she had no idea she was about to lose everything. The man standing at her hotel desk wasn't just any guest. It was Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan, and he desperately needed a room. Nadine's hands shook as she looked at her computer screen. Every room was booked, every single one. But she knew about the empty penthouse suite upstairs, the one her boss said nobody could ever use, the one that would get her fired if she gave it away. She looked at Michael's tired face. She thought about her father, who always told her to help people no matter what. And then she made a choice that would destroy her life. She gave him the key. 2 hours later, her boss was screaming at her in front of everyone. Security guards grabbed her arms. The guests stared as she was dragged through the lobby like a criminal. She was fired, humiliated, broken. Nadine went home that night and cried until she couldn't cry anymore. She had no job, no money coming in. Her mom needed expensive medicine. Her little brother needed help paying for college. And it was all her fault for trying to do the right thing. But the next morning, something impossible happened. There was a knock at her door. A mysterious delivery. An envelope sealed with red wax. Inside was a letter that would change everything. Michael Jordan wanted to meet her. He had something important to tell her. Something that would turn her worst day into the beginning of something incredible. What did Michael offer Nadine? Why did he really come to that hotel that night? And what secret was he hiding that would shock her to her core? Watch this whole video to find out how one fired hotel worker became a hero to hundreds of kids across Chicago. How one act of kindness created a ripple effect that changed lives forever. And how sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to find your true purpose. This is the true story of the woman who was fired for helping Michael Jordan, and how the next day changed her life forever. Nadine Chen sat on the edge of her lumpy couch, staring at the termination letter in her trembling hands. The words blurred through her tears, but she'd already memorized every cruel sentence. Effective immediately. Violation of hotel policy. Breach of trust. Security will escort you out. Her phone buzzed for the 20th time that morning. Another text from her co-worker Simone. Another she couldn't bring herself to answer. Or what could she possibly say? That she'd thrown away 5 years of hard work in a single moment? That she'd destroyed everything for a stranger? 24 hours ago, everything had been perfect. Nadine had arrived at the Pinnacle Hotel's marble lobby at 3 o'clock, just like every Tuesday afternoon. She'd smoothed her burgundy uniform jacket and smiled at the doorman. The hotel's crystal chandelier sparkled above her as she took her place behind the polished mahogany concierge desk. "The miracle worker is here," called out Thomas from the front desk. The nickname always made her blush, but she'd earned it honestly. Last month, she'd found a guest's missing wedding ring in a taxi halfway across Chicago. The month before, she'd gotten a restaurant reservation at a fully booked establishment for an anniversary dinner. And Nadine never gave up on helping people. It was the one thing that made her feel truly alive. Her father had taught her that. Before the heart attack took him 5 years ago, he'd always said, "Nadine, we're not rich in money, but we can be rich in kindness." She'd carried those words with her every single day since. The afternoon had passed smoothly. She'd arranged theater tickets, recommended restaurants, and called 3 different bakeries to find one that could deliver a gluten-free birthday cake by evening. Normal, wonderful work that filled her heart. Then, at 7:30, the revolving doors spun, and he walked in. The man was tall, extraordinarily tall, and wore a baseball cap pulled low and dark sunglasses despite the evening hour. He moved quickly, head down, clearly trying to avoid attention. But Nadine recognized him instantly, or her heart had nearly stopped. Michael Jordan. She'd grown up watching basketball with her father. Those had been their special nights. Bowl of popcorn between them, her father explaining every play, every strategy. Michael Jordan had been his hero. "Watch how he never gives up, Nadine," her father would say during the fourth quarter of a close game. "That's what greatness looks like." And now he was walking straight toward her desk. "Good evening," Michael said quietly, glancing around nervously. "I have a bit of a problem, and I'm hoping you can help." His voice was unmistakable. Nadine's hands shook as she typed on her computer. "Of course, sir. What can I do for you?" He explained that his assistant had made an error with his hotel reservation. He was supposed to stay at the Pinnacle, but his room was actually booked at a different hotel across town. He needed to stay here. He had an early morning charity event in the building next door. Every nearby hotel was completely full because of the massive medical conference downtown. Nadine's fingers flew across the keyboard, checking availability. Nothing? Every room was booked solid. "Let me see what I can figure out," she said, her mind racing through possibilities. "There has to be something." "Is there a problem here?" The cold voice cut through her thoughts like a knife. Mr. Dalton, the night manager, stood behind her with his arms crossed. He was a thin man with a permanently sour expression, someone who cared about rules more than people. Nadine had never liked him, and the feeling was mutual. "No problem, Mr. Dalton. I'm just helping this guest find accommodation." "Every room is booked," Mr. Dalton interrupted, barely glancing at Michael. "If he doesn't have a reservation, there's nothing we can do. Rules are rules." He walked away before Nadine could respond, disappearing into his office and closing the door. Nadine looked at Michael's tired face. She thought about her father, about what he would want her to do. Then she remembered something. The penthouse suite. It was being held for a VIP guest who wasn't arriving until tomorrow afternoon. The hotel kept it blocked in the system as a buffer, just in case the guest arrived early. It was strictly forbidden to use it for anyone else. Mr. Dalton had made that crystal clear in countless staff meetings, but the guest wasn't coming until tomorrow. The room was empty, and this man needed help. Nadine's finger hovered over the keyboard. She could feel her pulse pounding in her throat. This could cost her everything. She thought about her father one more time. Then she typed in the override code and printed a key card. "Sir," she said, sliding the card across the desk with a smile. "I found something for you. Penthouse suite, 18th floor. Complimentary upgrade." The relief on Michael Jordan's face made every risk worth it. 2 hours later, Mr. Dalton discovered what she'd done. His shout echoed through the lobby. "Nadine! My office! Now!" The next 15 minutes were a nightmare. Mr. Dalton's face turned purple with rage. He called her reckless, irresponsible, untrustworthy. She tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. When she said the guest was someone important, he laughed bitterly. I don't care if it was the president himself. You violated direct orders." He made her walk back to the lobby, where guests and co-workers stared in shocked silence, and fired her in front of everyone. 2 security guards escorted her through the same revolving doors she'd entered so hopefully just hours before. Michael Jordan never saw it happen. He was already upstairs in the room she'd given him. Now, sitting in her cramped apartment with unpaid bills stacked on the coffee table, Nadine felt the weight of her decision crushing her. Her mother needed expensive medication for diabetes. Her younger brother Wesley was counting on her to help with college tuition. She'd been the family's rock since their father died, and she'd just thrown it all away. The termination letter slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. Yet Nadine buried her face in her hands and cried until she couldn't cry anymore. She'd done the right thing. She was sure of it. So why did the right thing feel like the end of everything? Nadine didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching shadows from passing cars slide across the cracked paint. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mr. Dalton's furious face, heard the whispers of her co-workers, felt the humiliation of being escorted out by security. At 6 in the morning, she gave up trying to rest. Her eyes felt like sandpaper, swollen and raw from crying. She dragged herself to the bathroom and barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Dark circles, red, puffy eyes, hair tangled and messy. "Get yourself together," she whispered to her reflection. "You have to find another job." But even as she said it, the words felt hollow. Who would hire someone fired for violating company policy? Mr. Dalton would make sure every hotel in Chicago knew what she'd done. Nadine made coffee with shaking hands and sat at her small kitchen table with her laptop. The screen glowed too bright in the dim morning light. She opened a job search website and stared at the blinking cursor in the search bar. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Good morning, sweetie. How's work? Don't forget about Wesley's tuition payment next week." Nadine's stomach twisted into knots. She couldn't tell her mother the truth. Not yet. Not when her mother was already stressed about medical bills and Wesley's education. Lin Chen had worked 2 jobs for years after Nadine's father died, sacrificing everything for her children. She'd only recently been able to cut back to part-time because Nadine's hotel salary was finally enough to support them all. And now that was gone. "Work is fine, Mom. Love you," Nadine typed back, hating herself for the lie. She forced herself to start applying for jobs. Hotel front desk, receptionist, customer service representative. Each application required her to explain her employment gap. What could she possibly write? Fired for helping a guest sounded ridiculous. Terminated for policy violation sounded criminal. 2 hours passed. 3. Her coffee grew cold. Her hope grew colder. At 10 o'clock, someone knocked on her apartment door. Nadine froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. For a paranoid moment, she wondered if it was someone from the hotel coming to take back her employee handbook or collect her uniform. But she'd already returned everything to security. The knock came again, more insistent. She shuffled to the door in her pajamas and fuzzy slippers, not caring how she looked. Through the peephole, she saw a delivery man in a sleek black uniform she didn't recognize. He held a large envelope that looked expensive, thick, cream-colored paper with some kind of red seal on it. Nadine opened the door a crack, keeping the chain lock attached. "Can I help you?" "Delivery for Ms. Nadine Chen," the man said in a professional tone. He held up a tablet. "I need your signature, please." "I didn't order anything." "It's a private delivery, ma'am. I just need your signature." Curiosity overcame caution. Nadine unlatched the chain, signed the tablet with a stylus, and took the envelope. It was heavier than she expected. The paper textured like fine linen. The red wax seal bore initials she couldn't quite make out. The delivery man nodded and left without another word. Nadine closed the door and stood in her tiny entryway, turning the envelope over in her hands. Her name was written in elegant calligraphy across the front. No return address. No company logo. Her fingers trembled as she broke the wax seal and opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of matching cream paper, folded once. She unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was bold and confident. written in black ink. Dear Nadine, I learned this morning what happened to you because of your kindness to me. I cannot let this stand. Please meet me at Rosewood Cafe at noon today. There's something important I need to discuss with you. MJ. Nadine read the letter 3 times, her heart pounding harder with each reading. MJ, Michael Jordan. He knew. He knew she'd been fired, and he wanted to meet her. A tiny flame of hope flickered to life in her chest, but she was almost afraid to feel it. What could he possibly want to discuss? Maybe he'd help her get her job back. Maybe he'd talk to the hotel owners. Maybe he'd write a letter of recommendation. Or maybe, and this thought made her feel guilty, maybe he'd give her money. Not that she wanted charity, but the practical part of her brain that worried about her mother's medication and Wesley's tuition couldn't help calculating how much difference even a small amount would make. She looked at the clock. 10:17 a.m. Less than 2 hours. Nadine rushed to her bedroom and tore through her closet, looking for something appropriate to wear. Most of her clothes were casual: jeans, t-shirts, comfortable shoes for walking around the city. Her hotel uniforms were gone. Finally, she found the navy blue dress her mother had bought her for her first day at the Pinnacle Hotel 5 years ago. It still fit, though it was a little snug in the shoulders now. She showered quickly, scrubbing away the exhaustion and tears of the past day. The hot water felt like it was washing away some of the shame too, though not all of it. Nothing could completely erase the memory of being escorted out by security while everyone watched. Nadine dried her hair and tried to style it, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She settled for pulling it back in a simple ponytail. She applied minimal makeup, just enough to hide the dark circles and make herself look somewhat professional. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Yesterday, she'd been confident, capable, someone people called the miracle worker. Today, she looked fragile, uncertain, like someone barely holding herself together. Because that's exactly what she was. She left her apartment at 11 and took 2 buses to reach the neighborhood where Rosewood Cafe was located. She'd walked past it hundreds of times. It was in an upscale area near the Art Institute, the kind of place where a single coffee cost more than her entire lunch budget. She'd never actually been inside. Nadine arrived at 11:43, 17 minutes early. The cafe's exterior was all glass and polished wood, with tasteful gold lettering on the door. Through the windows, she could see well-dressed people having business meetings over espresso and pastries. She took a deep breath and walked in, and the interior was even more intimidating than she'd imagined. High ceilings, modern art on the walls, sleek furniture that probably cost more than everything in her apartment combined. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The air smelled like expensive coffee and fresh-baked croissants. A hostess in all black approached with a professional smile. "Good morning. Table for 1. "I'm meeting someone," Nadine managed. "At noon. Can I wait here?" "Of course. Would you like to be seated?" Nadine nodded and followed the hostess to a small table in the corner. Private, but with a clear view of the entrance. She sat down carefully, feeling out of place in her 5-year-old dress among all these polished professionals. A waiter appeared immediately. "Can I start you with something to drink?" Nadine's mouth was dry, but she glanced at the menu and her heart sank. $8 for coffee, $10 for tea. She had maybe $30 in her checking account until whenever she found another job. "Just water, please," she said quietly. The waiter's expression didn't change, but Nadine felt judged anyway. She folded her hands on the table and tried to look calm, even though her heart was racing. The minutes crawled by. 11:50. 11:55. Every time someone walked through the door, Nadine's stomach flipped. A businessman in an expensive suit. Two women laughing over shopping bags. An older couple holding hands. 11:58. 11:59. Noon. The door opened, and Michael Jordan walked in. Even without the baseball cap and sunglasses, he commanded attention. Several people looked up from their conversations. Someone whispered to their companion, so quickly, she nearly knocked over her. So quickly, she nearly knocked over her water glass. Mr. Jordan, Please, sit, he said gently, taking the seat across from her. And thank you for coming. Up close, in good lighting, he looked tired but kind. There were lines around his eyes that suggested both laughter and hard-won wisdom. I wanted to apologize, Michael began, and Nadine's confusion must have shown on her face, because he continued quickly. What happened to you was my fault. If I hadn't asked for your help— No, Nadine interrupted, surprising herself with her firmness. You didn't do anything wrong. I made a choice. I knew the risks. Michael studied her for a long moment. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. The waiter returned, and Michael ordered coffee for both of them without asking if Nadine wanted any. She was grateful. She desperately needed the caffeine, and she wouldn't have ordered it herself. Nadine, Michael said once the waiter left, what you did for me wasn't just about giving me a room. It was about seeing someone who needed help and being willing to risk something to provide it. That's rare. Incredibly rare. Nadine didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight with emotion. Michael reached into the leather bag he'd brought and pulled out a folder. It was thick, filled with papers. He slid it across the table to her. I have a proposition for you, he said, his eyes serious and intent. But before I explain, I need to know something. Nadine's hands hovered over the folder. Be afraid to open it. Afraid to hope. Michael leaned forward slightly. Are you willing to take another risk? Nadine's fingers touched the folder, but she couldn't make herself open it. Her mind spun with possibilities, each one more unlikely than the last. Her mouth felt dry despite the water she'd been sipping. What kind of risk? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael gestured to the folder. Open it. See for yourself. With trembling hands, Nadine lifted the cover. The first page showed a logo, a stylized basketball with wings, and beneath it, elegant text, Jordan Foundation for Youth Leadership. She turned the page and saw photographs of young people, teenagers laughing, studying, playing sports. Another page showed architectural plans for an office space. Then detailed budgets, program outlines, mission statements. See, I'm launching a new foundation, Michael explained as she read. Right here in Chicago. The goal is to help young people from difficult backgrounds develop leadership skills through mentorship, education programs, and real-world experiences. Kids who need someone to believe in them. Nadine looked up from the papers, her heart pounding. This is amazing, but I don't understand why you're showing me. I need someone to run the Chicago office, Michael interrupted gently. Someone to be the program director. Someone who will hire staff, develop programs, find the young people who need help, and build something meaningful from the ground up. The words hung in the air between them. Nadine's brain struggled to process what he was saying. You want me to run this? She asked, certain she'd misunderstood. Yes. But, Mr. Jordan, I'm just a hotel concierge. I don't have experience running a foundation. I never went to college. I had to work after my father died. I don't have a business degree or nonprofit training or— Michael held up a hand, stopping her spiral of self-doubt. Experience can be taught, Nadine. Character cannot. Yesterday you risked your livelihood to help a stranger. You didn't know if I could help you in return. You didn't do it for recognition or reward. You just did what was right. That's the kind of person I need leading this foundation. Tears pricked at Nadine's eyes. She blinked them back furiously, not wanting to cry in this expensive cafe in front of Michael Jordan. I've worked with dozens of nonprofit professionals, Michael continued. People with impressive resumes and advanced degrees, but most of them see programs and statistics. And I need someone who sees people, someone who understands what it's like to struggle, to need help, to have someone take a chance on you. The waiter arrived with their coffee. Nadine wrapped her hands around the warm cup, grateful for something to hold on to. She took a sip, buying herself time to think. The coffee was the best she'd ever tasted, rich and smooth with hints of chocolate. Of course it was. There's more you need to know, Michael said, and his tone became more serious. The foundation is brand new, unproven. The salary I'm offering is $42,000 a year, at least for the first year. That's less than you were making at the hotel. Nadine's heart sank. She'd been making $51,000 at the Pinnacle, plus benefits. $42,000 wouldn't be enough, not with her mother's medical bills and Wesley's tuition. There's no guarantee of success, Michael continued, his honesty almost brutal. You'd be building everything from scratch, finding office space, hiring staff, developing programs, recruiting young people to help. It could fail. I'm being completely transparent with you about that. Nadine set down her coffee cup carefully. The practical voice in her head was screaming. This was too risky. She needed stable income now. She should find another hotel job, something safe and predictable. Her family was depending on her. But another voice, quieter, deeper, whispered something different. This is what you were meant to do. How long do I have to decide? She asked. I'd like an answer by the end of the week, Michael said. But I understand this is a big decision. Take the time you need. Nadine looked down at the folder again, at the smiling faces of young people who could benefit from this foundation. She thought about her own life, how her father's death had derailed her plans for college, how she'd spent 5 years checking people into hotel rooms when she'd once dreamed of becoming a teacher. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why me? You could hire anyone. Someone with real qualifications. Michael leaned back in his chair, considering his words carefully. When I was playing basketball, everyone focused on the championships and the fame. But the moments that mattered most to me were different. It was the kid in the hospital who smiled when I visited. The single mother who told me watching me play gave her hope when she had none. The young player I mentored who went on to college because someone believed in him. He paused, his eyes distant with memory. Success isn't about the trophies, Nadine. It's about the people you help along the way. You understand that instinctively. That's worth more than any degree. Nadine felt tears threatening again. She took another sip of coffee to compose herself. What happens if the foundation fails? She asked. If I can't make it work? Then we learn from it and try something else, Michael said simply. Failure is part of growth. I missed thousands of shots in my career. Lost games, lost championships. But I always got back up. And I promise you this, if you give everything to this foundation, I will support you every step of the way. You won't be alone. The weight of the decision pressed down on Nadine's chest. Her mind raced through calculations. $42,000 a year. After taxes, there may be $32,000 take home. Rent was $1,200 a month. Her mother's medication was $300. Wesley's tuition payment was due next week, $3,000. Groceries, utilities, transportation. It wasn't enough. The math didn't work. But when had playing it safe ever led to anything meaningful? Nadine opened her mouth to respond, but Michael spoke first. "There's one more thing you should know," he said, and something in his tone made her pause. "Yesterday, after you were fired, one of your co-workers, a young woman named Simone, quit on the spot in protest." Nadine's eyes went wide. "What?" "She told the manager that if the hotel would fire someone like you, it didn't deserve her loyalty. She's been calling my assistant all morning, asking if there's any way she can help you. Apparently, you mentored her. I taught her everything she knows about hospitality." Tears spilled down Nadine's cheeks before she could stop them. Simone was 19, working her way through community college, struggling with every shift. Nadine had spent months training her, covering her mistakes, encouraging her when she wanted to quit. She'd never expected anything in return. "I didn't know she did that," Nadine whispered, overwhelmed. "Your kindness creates ripples," Michael said softly. "That's what real leadership looks like." Nadine wiped her eyes with her napkin, not caring anymore about maintaining composure. She looked at the folder, at Michael's patient face, at the opportunity that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced at it reflexively. A text from Wesley. "Hey, sis, don't forget tuition is due next Friday. I love you." The reminder felt like a physical blow. She couldn't take this job. It was irresponsible, selfish even. Her family needed her to be practical, to find stable work, to keep everything together like she'd been doing for 5 years. She looked up at Michael, ready to tell him she needed more time, maybe suggest someone else for the position, someone more qualified and less burdened with obligations. But before she could speak, her phone rang. The screen showed Mercy General Hospital. Nadine's blood turned to ice. Her mother. Something was wrong with her mother. "I'm so sorry. I have to," she stammered, already standing, grabbing her phone. "Go," Michael said immediately. "Family first, always," Nadine answered as she rushed toward the door. "Hello?" "Ms. Chen, this is Nurse Patterson from Mercy General. Your mother was brought to the emergency room about 20 minutes ago. She's stable, but you should come right away." The cafe, Michael Jordan, the foundation, everything disappeared. Nadine ran. Behind her, the folder with all its promises and possibilities sat on the table. Forgotten. Michael watched her go, then quietly picked up the folder and tucked it back into his bag. He left cash on the table for the coffee and walked out into the bright afternoon, pulling out his phone to make a call. "She's going to need help," he said into the phone. "Get me the name of her mother's doctor and current medical situation, and find out about her brother's tuition. I need the full picture." Because if there was one thing Michael Jordan understood, it was that you couldn't ask someone to take a leap of faith while they were standing on a crumbling foundation. Sometimes, before you could help someone soar, you had to make sure they had solid ground beneath their feet. But Nadine didn't know any of that yet. All she knew was terror as she ran to catch a bus to the hospital. Her mind filled with prayers and worst-case scenarios, the decision about her future pushed aside by the immediate crisis of her present. The folder in Michael's bag held more than just job descriptions and program plans. It held possibility, hope, a different future. But first, Nadine would have to survive this moment and learn that sometimes the people you help have a way of helping you back. Nadine burst through the automatic doors of Mercy General Hospital, her chest heaving from running 3 blocks from the bus stop. The fluorescent lights were too bright, The antiseptic smell too strong. Everything felt unreal, like she was moving through a nightmare. "Lin Chen," she gasped at the reception desk. "My mother. She was brought to emergency." "Room 247, second floor," the receptionist said, before Nadine could finish. "Take the elevator on your right." Nadine ran to the elevator, jabbing the button repeatedly, even though she knew it wouldn't make it come faster. Her mind raced with horrible possibilities: heart attack, stroke, diabetic coma. Her mother had been managing her diabetes for years, but the medication was expensive, and sometimes Nadine's stomach twisted with guilt. Sometimes her mother skipped doses to save money. The elevator doors finally opened, so Nadine squeezed inside before they were fully apart and pressed the button for the second floor. The ride up felt like it took hours, even though it was only seconds. She sprinted down the hallway, reading room numbers through blurred vision. 235, 239, 243, 247. The door was partially open. Nadine pushed through and stopped short. Her mother lay in the hospital bed, looking small and fragile against the white sheets. An IV line ran into her arm. Monitors beeped steadily beside her, but her eyes were open, and when she saw Nadine, she reached out one shaking hand. "Mom!" Nadine rushed to the bedside and grasped her mother's hand, careful not to disturb the IV. "What happened? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetie," Lin Chen said, though her voice was weak. "Don't fuss." "Don't fuss?" "Mom, you're in the hospital." A doctor in blue scrubs entered the room, reading from a tablet. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Ms. Chen, I'm Dr. Patel. Your mother had a hypoglycemic episode. Her blood sugar dropped dangerously low. She collapsed at the grocery store." Nadine's grip on her mother's hand tightened. "How low?" 42 when the paramedics arrived. "She's stable now. We've got her levels back up to 98. But she needs better management of her condition." Dr. Patel looked at Lin directly. "Mrs. Chen, you told the nurse you've been skipping your insulin doses. Is that correct?" Lin looked away, her weathered face flushing with embarrassment. "Sometimes, when money is tight." "Mom," Nadine whispered, her heart breaking. You were already working so hard for Wesley's school," Lin said defensively. "I didn't want to be more of a burden." Dr. Patel's expression was sympathetic, but firm. "I understand medical costs are difficult, but skipping insulin for type 1 diabetes isn't just risky, it's life-threatening. You were lucky today. Next time, you might not be." "What does she need?" Nadine asked, pushing down her panic to focus on solutions. "What's the treatment plan?" "More frequent doctor visits, monthly instead of every 3 months. We need to adjust her insulin dosage and possibly add another medication to stabilize her blood sugar. I'm also recommending a continuous glucose monitor so we can track her levels in real time." Nadine nodded, taking mental notes even as dread pooled in her stomach. Doctor visits, new medication, a glucose monitor. A like? There's a chair that converts to a like. There's a chair that converts to a small bed. "I'm staying," Nadine said immediately. Dr. Patel smiled. "I'll have the nurse bring you some blankets. Mrs. Chen, you rest now. We'll talk more in the morning." She left quietly, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum floor. Lin squeezed Nadine's hand weakly. "You should go home, sweetie. You have work tomorrow." Nadine's throat constricted. She still hadn't told her mother about being fired. Now seemed like the worst possible time. "I'm staying, Mom. End of discussion." They sat in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the steady beep of the heart monitor. Nadine studied her mother's face, the gray strands in her black hair, the deep lines around her eyes, the calluses on her hands from years of hard work. Lin Chen had sacrificed everything after her husband died. She'd worked as a seamstress and a house cleaner, sometimes both in the same day, to keep her children fed and housed and safe. And now Nadine had failed her. "There's something I need to tell you," Nadine said quietly. Before she could continue, the door opened again. Wesley walked in, still wearing his backpack from campus. At 20, he looked so much like their father. Same strong jawline, same warm brown eyes, same way of running his hand through his hair when he was worried. "I got here as fast as I could," he said, crossing to the bed. "Mom, you scared me to death." I'm fine, Lynn insisted, though she looked exhausted. "Everyone needs to stop worrying." Wesley looked at Nadine. Something in her expression made him pause. "What's wrong?" "Besides this, I mean." Nadine took a deep breath. There was no good way to say it. "I got fired yesterday." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Lynn's eyes went wide. Wesley's mouth dropped open. "What?" Lynn tried to sit up, and Nadine gently pushed her back down. "It's okay, Mom. I'm handling it." "How is it okay?" "Nadine, we need Wesley's tuition, my medication." "I know, Mom. I know." Nadine's voice cracked despite her best efforts to stay strong. "I'm going to figure it out." "What happened?" Wesley asked, his face tight with concern. "Did you do something wrong?" And so Nadine told them everything. About Michael Jordan needing help. About the empty penthouse suite. I was silent, except for the monitors beeping. "You helped Michael Jordan?" Wesley said finally, his voice filled with awe. "Like, the actual Michael Jordan?" "That's not the important part, Wesley," Lynn said sharply. Then, to Nadine's surprise, her mother's stern expression softened. "Although your father would have loved that story." Nadine felt tears building again. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have just followed the rules. I should have—" "No," Lynn interrupted, and her voice was stronger now despite her weakened state. "Your father always said you were meant for something bigger than checking people into hotel rooms." Nadine stared at her mother in shock. "But the foundation job pays less. We can't afford—" "We'll figure it out," Lynn said firmly. "We always do. Nadine, when your father died, you gave up your scholarship to take care of us. You were 18 years old with a full ride to Northwestern University, and you threw it away to work at a hotel. I didn't throw it away. I chose family. And we love you for it," Wesley jumped in. "But Nadine, you've been sacrificing for us for 5 years. Maybe it's time you took a chance on yourself." Nadine looked between her mother and brother, these two people she'd been trying to protect and provide for since she was barely more than a child herself. "But your tuition payment is due next week. And Mom needs—" "I can defer the payment for a semester," Wesley said. "Take some time off school. Get a job." "Absolutely not," Nadine said immediately. "You're not dropping out." "Then I'll work more hours," Wesley countered. "Pick up weekend shifts. Nadine, you've been carrying us for 5 years. Let us help carry you for once." Lynn reached out and took Nadine's hand again, her grip surprisingly strong. "Your father used to say that playing it safe isn't the same as living. He said the biggest risk in life is never taking any risks at all." Nadine's tears finally spilled over. She thought about the folder Michael had shown her, about helping young people who needed someone to believe in them, about doing work that actually mattered instead of just paying bills. "I'm scared," she admitted in a whisper. "Good," Lynn said. "Oh, that means it matters. When have you ever done anything important that didn't scare you?" A nurse entered to check Lynn's vitals, giving them a moment to compose themselves. Nadine wiped her eyes and tried to think clearly. The foundation job would pay $42,000 a year. With careful budgeting, if Wesley took on some work-study hours, if her mother could get on a payment plan for medication, maybe, just maybe. After the nurse left, Nadine pulled out her phone. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her thumb hovering over Michael Jordan's number. He'd written it on a business card at the cafe, pressed it into her hand before she ran out. "What are you doing?" Wesley asked. "Something crazy," Nadine said. "Something Dad would want me to do." She stepped into the hallway and dialed the number. It rang once, twice. "I stands. I want to accept. I want to run stands. I want to accept. I want to run your foundation." There was a pause on the other end. Then Michael's voice, and she could hear the smile in it. "Welcome to the team, Nadine. And please, call me Michael." Relief washed over her, mixed with terror and excitement and hope. "Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll talk details tomorrow. Tonight, be with your family. That's what matters most." "Michael, wait. Before you hang up..." Nadine hesitated, then pushed forward. "Why are you really doing this? You could hire anyone." Another pause, longer this time. "Because someone once took a chance on me," Michael said quietly. "You know, when I was cut from my high school basketball team, my coach told me I wasn't good enough. But my mother saw something different. She believed in me when no one else did. That belief changed my life. I want to give that to others, and I want people like you, people who understand the power of believing in someone, to lead that mission." Nadine's throat was too tight to speak. "Get some rest," Michael continued. "Oh, and Nadine, there's something else you need to know about what happened yesterday. Something I couldn't tell you at the cafe, but it can wait until tomorrow. Focus on your mother tonight." "What is it?" Nadine asked, curiosity prickling through her exhaustion. "Tomorrow," Michael said gently. "I promise it's worth the wait." He hung up before she could press further. Nadine stood in the fluorescent-lit hospital hallway, a phone still pressed to her ear, wondering what else there could possibly be to know. What secret was Michael keeping? What had really happened after she'd been fired? But those questions could wait. Right now, her mother needed her. She walked back into room 247, where Lynn was already dozing and Wesley sat in the visitor's chair, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when she entered. "Well?" he asked. "I took the job," Nadine said. Wesley broke into a huge grin. "Dad would be so proud." Nadine settled into the uncomfortable chair that would be her bed for the night, pulling a thin hospital blanket over her lap. Through the window, she could see the Chicago skyline glittering in the darkness. Somewhere out there was a foundation waiting to be built, young people waiting to be helped, a future she couldn't quite imagine yet. Yet for the first time in 24 hours, despite everything, the firing, the hospital, the uncertainty, Nadine felt something unexpected bloom in her chest. Hope. She'd taken a risk to help someone in need, lost everything, and somehow found something better on the other side. Maybe the same thing could happen for the young people she'd be helping through the foundation. Maybe that was the whole point. As she drifted off to sleep in the uncomfortable chair, Nadine thought about Michael's words. There was something else he needed to tell her, something important. Whatever it was, it would have to wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow, when her life would change again in ways she couldn't possibly predict. Nadine woke to pale morning light filtering through the hospital blinds and the sound of breakfast carts rattling down the hallway, and her neck ached from sleeping in the chair, and her back felt like it had been twisted into knots. She blinked groggily and looked toward the bed. Her mother was awake, sitting up slightly, looking much better than she had yesterday. The color had returned to her cheeks, and her eyes were clearer. "Good morning, sweetie," Lynn said softly. "You should have gone home. That chair can't be comfortable." "I'm fine," Nadine lied, rubbing her stiff neck. "How are you feeling?" "Much better. The nurse already came by. Dr. Patel says I can probably go home this afternoon if my blood sugar stays stable." Relief flooded through Nadine. "That's great news, Mom." Wesley arrived 20 minutes later with coffee from the hospital cafeteria and muffins that were only slightly stale. The three of them sat together, eating breakfast and talking about everything except the elephant in the room, how they would manage financially in the coming months. At 9 o'clock, Nadine's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Good morning, Nadine. It's Michael. Can you meet me at the Foundation office space at 11 a.m.? I have something important to show you. Address 1847 West Harrison Street, Suite 400. Nadine showed the text to her mother and Wesley. "Go," Lynn said immediately. "We're fine here. The doctor won't discharge me until this afternoon anyway." "Are you sure?" "Nadine Chen, if you ask me that one more time, I'm going to throw this muffin at you." Lynn's smile took the edge off her words. "Go start your new life. We'll be right here when you get back." Wesley nodded in agreement. "I'll stay with Mom. Go meet Michael Jordan and find out what this big secret is." Nadine kissed her mother's forehead and headed out, taking the train toward the address Michael had sent. The West Loop neighborhood was a mix of old warehouses being converted into trendy offices and new glass buildings rising between them. She found 1847 easily, a renovated brick building with large windows and a modern entrance. Suite 400 was on the 4th floor. When Nadine stepped off the elevator, she found herself facing a glass door with temporary paper signs that read, "Jordan Foundation for Youth Leadership, Chicago Office." Through the glass, she could see an open space with exposed brick walls, high ceilings with industrial beams, and morning sunlight streaming through tall windows. Michael stood in the middle of the empty space, talking on his phone. She shook it, still slightly starstruck. She shook it, still slightly starstruck despite everything. "What do you think of the space?" "It's beautiful," Nadine said honestly, looking around. The space was raw but full of potential. She could already imagine desks here, a meeting area there, maybe a lounge space for the young people they'd be helping. 3,000 square feet, Michael said. "Room to grow. The lease is signed for 3 years. This is where you'll build something amazing." Nadine turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "I still can't believe this is real." "It's real," Michael assured her. "But before we talk about office furniture and hiring plans, I need to tell you what I promised yesterday. I set up 2 folding chairs. They sat down, set up 2 folding chairs. They sat down facing each other, and Michael leaned forward, his expression serious. "When I woke up the morning after you gave me that room, I wanted to come downstairs and thank you personally," he began. "I got to the lobby around 8 in the morning. You weren't at the desk. Your shift had ended. But I heard voices coming from the manager's office." Nadine felt her pulse quicken. "The door was partially open," Michael continued. "I heard a man, your manager, Mr. Dalton, talking to someone else. He was bragging about firing you. But Nadine, what I heard next..." Michael paused, his jaw tightening with anger at the memory. "You, he said he'd recognized me the night before. He knew exactly who I was." Nadine's eyes widened. "But he acted like he didn't care," Michael finished. "That was a lie. He was furious because he wanted to be the one to help me. He wanted the credit, the publicity, maybe even a photo opportunity. When you helped me instead, You made him look bad. So he fired you not because you broke the rules, but because you bruised his ego. Anger surged through Nadine, hot and sharp. All of this, her firing, her humiliation, her family's financial crisis, because of one man's petty jealousy? There's more, Michael said grimly. I stayed and listened. Mr. Dalton told the other manager that the VIP reservation for the penthouse, the one you supposedly violated, was fake. What? Nadine couldn't process what she was hearing. He'd been holding that room empty during the medical conference so he could rent it out at triple the normal price to desperate guests at the last minute. He was pocketing the difference himself. When you gave the room to me, you accidentally exposed his little scheme. Nadine felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath her. He was stealing from the hotel? Committing fraud, technically, Michael said, and he fired you to cover his tracks and punish you at the same time. Rage and vindication swirled in Nadine's chest. She hadn't done anything wrong. She'd been right all along. Did you tell someone? The hotel management? Michael's smile was satisfied. I made some calls. The hotel is owned by the Pemberton Group. I happen to know Robert Pemberton. We've done charity work together. I explained the situation. Oh, and Robert launched an immediate investigation. And? Mr. Dalton was fired yesterday afternoon. They found evidence of his fraud going back 6 months. He'd stolen over $40,000 from the hotel. He's facing criminal charges. Nadine sat back in her chair, stunned. Mr. Dalton was fired. The man who'd destroyed her life in front of everyone was gone, disgraced, facing legal consequences for his actual crimes. The hotel's owners called me directly yesterday evening, Michael continued. They wanted to apologize to you personally. They offered to reinstate you immediately, with a promotion to night manager and a significant raise, $65,000 a year, plus full benefits. Nadine's heart stopped. $65,000. That was more money than she'd ever imagined making. That would solve all their problems. Or her mother's medication, Wesley's tuition, every financial stress that had been crushing her. But she'd already accepted the foundation job. Michael watched her face carefully. I told them I'd pass along the message, but that you'd already accepted another position. They asked me to let you know the offer stands for 30 days if you change your mind. 30 days, Nadine repeated numbly. Nadine, I want you to run this foundation more than I can express, Michael said. But I also want you to make the choice that's right for you and your family. If you need to take the hotel job, I'll understand completely. No hard feelings. Nadine looked around the empty office space, imagining it filled with young people finding their path in life. She thought about checking guests into hotel rooms versus changing lives. So she thought about safety versus purpose. The hotel job would solve everything, she said slowly. My mom's medical bills, Wesley's school, all our money problems. It would, Michael agreed. But the foundation job? Nadine struggled to find the words. It would mean something, not just to me, but to kids who need someone to believe in them, the way you're believing in me. Michael nodded but didn't speak, letting her work through it. Nadine thought about her father, about his last words to her about being rich in kindness instead of money. She thought about Simone quitting in protest, about how one act of integrity could inspire others. She thought about the kind of person she wanted to be. I'm keeping the foundation job, she said firmly. We'll figure out the money. We always do. The smile that broke across Michael's face was like sunshine. I was hoping you'd say that. But I have a condition, Nadine added, surprising herself with her boldness. If we're going to help young people, we need to help them practically too. Not just leadership training, but real support. Help with college applications, tutoring, maybe even some financial assistance for families struggling with medical bills or tuition. Michael leaned back, studying her. "You're thinking about your own family." "I'm thinking about every family like mine," Nadine corrected. "Kids with potential who can't reach it because they're drowning in survival mode. Leadership training is important, but it doesn't mean much if you're too hungry or stressed to focus." "You're absolutely right," Michael said. Let's build that into the program design. In fact, let's make it central to what we do." They talked for another hour about the Foundation's vision, and Nadine felt something awakening inside her. Creativity, passion, purpose. This was what she was meant to do, not checking people into hotel rooms, but helping people check into better versions of their lives. Finally, Michael glanced at his watch. "I have a meeting across town in 30 minutes, but there's one more thing." He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. "Open it when you get home." Nadine took the envelope, feeling its weight. "What is it?" "Call it a signing bonus," Michael said with a mysterious smile. "And before you argue, it's standard practice for executive positions. You're not a charity case, Nadine. You're a valued hire, and this foundation has a budget for that." He left before she could protest, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. Nadine sat alone in what would soon be her office, holding the envelope. Slowly, she opened it. Inside was a check made out to her for $15,000. Her hands started shaking. $15,000. That would cover her mother's medical expenses for months, Wesley's tuition, a cushion while she transitioned to the lower salary. But it was the note tucked behind the check that made tears stream down her face. "Nadine, you risked everything to help someone you didn't know. Let me return the favor. This is not charity. This is investment in someone I believe in. Use it to take care of your family so you can focus on taking care of others. The world needs more people like you." "Michael!" Nadine pressed the note to her chest and cried, not from sadness or stress, but from overwhelming gratitude and relief. She'd done the right thing, even when it cost her everything. And somehow, impossibly, the universe had rewarded that choice. Or maybe not the universe. Maybe just people recognizing goodness in each other and choosing to nurture it. She pulled out her phone and texted Wesley, "Coming back to the hospital. I have good news. Really, really good news." Then she stood in the middle of her new office, turned in a slow circle and started planning. She had young people to help, programs to build, lives to change, starting with her own. As she rode the train back to Mercy General, Nadine thought about everything that had happened in just 2 days. She'd been fired, hit rock bottom, faced impossible choices, done and somehow ended up exactly where she was meant to be. Her father used to say that life wasn't about avoiding storms, but about learning to dance in the rain. Nadine was ready to dance, but she didn't know, couldn't possibly know, that the biggest surprises were still ahead. That in 6 months, the foundation would grow beyond anything she'd imagined. That one small act of kindness would ripple outward in ways that would change hundreds of lives. That sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to find yourself. 6 months later, Nadine stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the collar of her navy blazer. The woman staring back at her looked different from the one who'd been escorted out of the Pinnacle Hotel in shame. This woman stood taller, smiled easier, had light in her eyes that came from doing work that mattered. Her mother appeared in the doorway, moving with more energy than she'd had in years, Her diabetes was under control now with proper medication and regular doctor visits. The glucose monitor on her arm beeped softly, a constant reminder of how close they'd come to losing her. "You look beautiful, sweetie," Lynn said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your father would be so proud." "Thanks, Mom." Nadine smoothed her blazer one more time. "I'm so nervous. What if I mess up the speech?" "You won't. You never do." Tonight was the Jordan Foundation's first annual celebration, an event showcasing the programs they'd built and the young people they'd helped over the past 6 months. Donors, community leaders, and local press would be there. Michael had asked Nadine to give the keynote speech. Wesley stuck his head in the room wearing a dress shirt and tie. He'd finished his fall semester with straight A's and was back for winter break. "The car's here. You ready?" Nadine took a deep breath. "Ready as I'll ever be." They arrived at the Riverside Events Center just as the sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The venue's floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the water, and inside, round tables were decorated with the foundation's colors, blue and gold. A stage at the front held a podium and a large screen for presentations. Simone rushed over the moment Nadine walked in. At 19, she'd grown into her role as deputy director, proving herself to be organized, creative, and deeply committed to the foundation's mission. So she wore a professional dress and had her natural curls pulled back elegantly. "Everything's set," Simone reported, tablet in hand. "Guest list is full. We had to turn away 20 people. Catering is ready. The tech guy tested all the equipment. And the kids are backstage, practicing their presentations." The kids were 17 young people who'd gone through the Foundation's first leadership program. They ranged from 14 to 18 years old, from neighborhoods across Chicago, where opportunities were scarce and challenges were plentiful. Tonight, 3 of them would share their stories on stage. "How are they doing?" Nadine asked. "Nervous?" "Terrified," Simone admitted with a grin. "But ready. Marcus especially. He's been rehearsing his speech for days." "Marcus?" Nadine smiled, thinking about him. See, he was 16 when she'd first met him, failing most of his classes at a South Side high school, angry at the world, convinced he had no future. His father had left when he was young, and his mother worked 3 jobs just to keep their apartment. Marcus had been heading down a dangerous path. Now, 6 months later, he was a different person. His grades had improved dramatically. He'd discovered a passion for engineering, and most importantly, he believed in himself. Guests began arriving, business people in expensive suits, community organizers in colorful African prints, teachers and social workers and parents. Michael Jordan walked in, accompanied by his assistant, and the room's energy shifted immediately. People gravitated toward him, but he graciously deflected attention back to the Foundation's work. "I know it matters. I threw up before my know it matters. I threw up before my first championship game. That's not as comforting as you think it is. You're going to be amazing," he said seriously. "These past 6 months, you've exceeded every expectation. You took an empty office and turned it into something real. Something that's changing lives." Nadine felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "I had a lot of help." "You had a lot of support," Michael corrected. "But the vision, the heart, the daily grind of making it work, that was all you." The lights dimmed, signaling the start of the program. Everyone found their seats. Nadine sat at the head table with Michael, Simone, and several board members. And her mother and Wesley were at a table nearby, beaming with pride. The evening began with a video montage showing the Foundation's journey, the empty office space being transformed, young people arriving for their first day of programming, workshops and mentoring sessions, field trips to colleges and businesses, moments of laughter and learning and growth. Nadine watched through misty eyes, remembering every moment captured on screen. Then, it was time for the young people to speak. First up was Aisha, a 14-year-old girl with braided hair and a quiet voice that grew stronger as she spoke. She talked about losing her father to violence, about feeling lost and alone, about finding a community at the foundation that made her feel seen and valued. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Next was Destiny, a 17-year-old who'd been living in her car with her mother when she first came to the foundation. She spoke about dignity, about how the foundation didn't just offer help, but offered respect, how they'd connected her mother with housing resources while supporting Destiny's dreams of becoming a nurse. She was now applying to colleges with scholarship support from the foundation. Then Marcus walked onto the stage. He was tall and lanky, wearing a suit that Nadine had helped him pick out last week. His hands shook slightly as he gripped the podium, but his voice was clear. 6 months ago, I was failing, he began, not just in school, but in life. I was angry all the time. I thought the world had given up on me, so why shouldn't I give up on myself? He paused, looking out at the audience. Then Ms. Nadine showed up at my school. My life to look like. Nobody had ever my life to look like. Nobody had ever asked me that before. Nadine's throat tightened. She remembered that first conversation with Marcus, his defensive posture, his skeptical eyes, the moment when his walls had finally started to crack. Ms. Nadine believed I could do something with my life before I believed it. Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. She connected me with Mr. Hassan, an engineer who became my mentor. She helped me raise my grades. She took me to visit colleges I didn't even know existed. But most important, she treated me like I mattered, like my dreams were worth fighting for. He turned and looked directly at Nadine. I just found out yesterday that I got accepted to the University of Illinois engineering program with a full scholarship. None of that would have happened without this foundation, without Ms. Nadine taking a chance on me. The room erupted in applause. Nadine was openly crying now, not caring about her makeup. Michael squeezed her shoulders supportively. Marcus left the stage, and Simone took the microphone to introduce Nadine. As she walked to the podium, Nadine felt the weight of the moment. 6 months of work, dozens of young people's hopes, a community's trust in what they were building. She looked out at the audience and began to speak. 6 months ago, I was standing in a hotel lobby being fired from my job, she said, deciding to start with the truth. I'd been a concierge for 5 years, and I loved my work. But one night, I made a choice that cost me everything. I helped someone who needed it, even though it meant breaking the rules. She paused, letting the story sink in. That someone was Michael Jordan. And when he found out I'd lost my job because I'd helped him, he offered me an opportunity that terrified me. He asked me to run this foundation, to take a leap of faith, to risk everything again for something I believed in. Nadine gripped the podium, gathering her thoughts. I almost said no. The practical thing would have been to find another safe job, to play it safe, to stop taking risks. But my father taught me that we're not put on this earth to play it safe. We're here to make a difference. She gestured to where Marcus and the other young people sat. These incredible young people reminded me why that matters. They're facing challenges most of us can't imagine. Poverty, violence, family instability, systemic barriers. But they have something stronger than any obstacle: potential, dreams, the capacity to become extraordinary. Her voice grew passionate. Our job at this foundation isn't to fix these young people. They're not broken. Our job is to believe in them, to provide resources and opportunities, to be the support system they deserve, to see them not as statistics or problems, but as the leaders they're becoming. Nadine's eyes found her mother in the crowd. My mother taught me about sacrifice. She worked multiple jobs to give my brother and me a chance at a better life. But she also taught me that sacrifice without purpose is just suffering. We need to sacrifice for things that matter, for people who matter, for a future worth building. She looked at Michael. And someone I deeply respect taught me that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the path to it. Getting fired was the worst moment of my life, but it led me here, to this work, to these young people. Sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to find your purpose. The room was silent, hanging on every word. So, here's what I want to say to the young people in this room and everyone watching. Your circumstances don't define your potential. Your past doesn't determine your future. And there are people, like everyone here tonight, who believe in you and want to help you succeed. Nadine's voice softened with emotion. To the donors and supporters who made this possible, thank you for investing in these young people's futures. To my team, especially Simone, who took her own risk to stand up for what's right, thank you for your dedication. To Michael, for seeing something in a hotel concierge that she couldn't see in herself. Thank you for changing my life so I could help change theirs. She looked out at the faces staring back at her, some crying, some smiling, all moved. This is just the beginning, Nadine concluded. In 6 months, we've helped 17 young people, but there are thousands more who need this support. So we're expanding. New programs, more mentors, greater reach. Because every young person deserves someone who believes in them. Every young person deserves a chance. The applause started small and grew into a standing ovation. Nadine stepped away from the podium, overwhelmed and grateful as people rushed forward to congratulate her. But then, something unexpected happened. A woman pushed through the crowd, well-dressed, middle-aged, with tears streaming down her face. It took Nadine a moment to recognize her. Claire, the assistant manager from the Pinnacle Hotel who'd stood silent while Nadine was fired. "Nadine," Claire said, her voice breaking, "I need to talk to you, please." Nadine's first instinct was defensiveness, but she saw genuine anguish in Claire's eyes. "Okay, let's step outside." They walked to a quiet balcony overlooking the river. The city lights sparkled on the water below. "I'm so sorry," Claire began immediately. "I've been carrying this guilt for 6 months. I stood there while Dalton humiliated you, and I did nothing. I was a coward." Nadine waited, letting her continue. "I wanted to speak up. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. But I was scared of losing my job, scared of making waves. So I stayed silent." Fresh tears spilled down Claire's cheeks. "Then I watched what you built here. I've been following the Foundation's work. I see what you're doing, how you're changing lives. And all I can think is that you're doing it because you had the courage I didn't have." "Claire, please, let me finish." Claire took a shaky breath. "I quit the Pinnacle 2 months ago. I couldn't work there anymore knowing what happened to you. I've been volunteering at youth centers, trying to find a way to make amends. And I'm here tonight to ask, is there any way I can help? I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to do something that matters. Like you." Nadine studied the woman before her. 6 months ago, she would have been angry, bitter, unforgiving. But building this foundation, at working with young people who'd made mistakes and deserved second chances, had changed her perspective. "We need someone to coordinate our college prep program," Nadine said slowly. "It's a volunteer position for now, but it could become paid if we get the funding. Are you interested?" Claire's eyes widened with hope and disbelief. "You'd let me work with the foundation? After what I did?" "Everyone deserves a second chance," Nadine said. "That's kind of our whole philosophy here. But Claire, if you join us, you can't be silent anymore. When you see something wrong, you have to speak up. That's non-negotiable." "I promise," Claire said fervently. "I promise I will never stay silent again." They shook hands, and Nadine felt a weight she didn't know she'd been carrying finally lift. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened, and it was about choosing not to let the past poison the future. They walked back inside together, and Nadine was immediately surrounded by people wanting to talk, to donate, to get involved. It was overwhelming in the best way. This was what success looked like, not personal achievement, but collective impact. Near the end of the evening, Michael pulled Nadine aside one more time. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, and something in his tone made her heart skip. "About that night at the hotel, the night that started all of this." Nadine felt suddenly nervous. "What about it?" Michael glanced around, making sure they were alone. "It wasn't an accident that I came to the Pinnacle Hotel that night. My assistant didn't make a mistake with the reservation." Confusion washed over Nadine. What do you mean?" "I'd heard about you," Michael admitted. "About a concierge at the Pinnacle who went above and beyond for every guest, who helped people who couldn't afford to stay at fancy hotels, who treated everyone with the same dignity, regardless of their status. I wanted to see if the stories were true." Nadine's mind reeled. You tested me?" "I wanted to meet someone who helped people not for recognition or reward, but because it was right. I was looking for someone to lead this foundation, someone with real integrity." Michael's expression was pained. "But I never expected that testing you would cost you everything. When I learned you'd been fired, I was devastated. I'd meant to discover your character, not destroy your career." Nadine didn't know whether to feel angry or grateful. "So this whole time?" "You were never just a random act of kindness," Michael said. "You were exactly who I was looking for. But what happened next? How you handled losing everything. How you remained kind even in your darkest moment. How you chose purpose over safety. That proved I'd found someone even more remarkable than I'd hoped." The revelation settled over Nadine like snow, surprising, transformative, making everything look different. Her firing hadn't been random bad luck or cruel injustice. It had been a test she didn't know she was taking. And she'd passed not by getting the answer right, but by staying true to herself. "Are you angry?" Michael asked quietly. Nadine thought about it. Was she? 6 months ago, she would have been furious. But now, standing in a room full of young people whose lives were changing because of the foundation, she felt something else entirely. "No," she said finally. "I'm grateful. If you hadn't tested me, I'd still be checking people into hotels. I'd still be playing it safe. I'd never have found my purpose." Michael's relief was visible. "I'm sorry anyway, for the pain it caused." "Don't be." Nadine looked out at the celebration, her mother laughing with Wesley, Simone talking animatedly with Marcus, Claire already discussing college prep plans with another volunteer. Sometimes the best things in life come wrapped in the worst moments. We just have to be brave enough to unwrap them. The evening wound down with promises to stay in touch, commitments to volunteer, checks written for donations. As guests filtered out, Nadine stood at the window watching the city lights shimmer on the dark water. Simone joined her. "Can you believe we did this?" "No," Nadine admitted. 6 months ago, I was at rock bottom. Now you're changing the world," Simone finished. "One kid at a time." They stood together in comfortable silence, two women who'd taken risks for what was right and found their way to something meaningful. Nadine's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Heading home with Wesley. So proud of you, sweetie. Dad would be too. Love you." Nadine smiled and typed back, "Love you too, Mom. See you at home." Home. She had a home to go to, a family to support, young people to help, a purpose that made her leap out of bed each morning excited for what the day would bring. She'd lost a job but found a calling, lost security but gained purpose, and lost everything she thought mattered and discovered what actually did. As she turned off the lights in the event center and headed toward the exit where Michael waited to give her a ride home, Nadine thought about that night 6 months ago, the moment she'd handed a key card to a stranger and changed the trajectory of her entire life. She'd been fired for helping Michael Jordan, and the next day had indeed changed her life. But not because he'd rescued her or given her money or fixed her problems. He'd simply given her an opportunity to become who she was always meant to be. Sometimes that's all anyone needs, one person who believes in them enough to open a door. After that, you have to walk through it yourself. Nadine had walked through, and she wasn't looking back. Outside, the Chicago night was cold but clear. What thing I need to do first? She pulled up thing I need to do first. She pulled up Marcus's number and typed a message. "I'm proud of you. Your acceptance to U of I is just the beginning. Never stop believing in yourself. You've got this." His reply came almost immediately. "Thank you for believing in me first. You changed my life, Ms. Nadine." No, Nadine thought as she climbed into the car. We changed each other's lives. That's how it works. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying her toward home and family and the next chapter of her journey. Behind her, the event center's lights blinked off one by one. Ahead of her, the future glowed with possibility. She'd been fired for kindness. She'd been rewarded with purpose. And somewhere in Chicago tonight, 17 young people were going to sleep believing in themselves a little more than they had before. That was worth everything she'd lost, and more than she'd ever dreamed of finding. The end was just another beginning, and Nadine was ready for whatever came next. So that's how Nadine went from being fired in shame to changing hundreds of young lives. One small act of kindness created a ripple effect that's still spreading across Chicago today. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps us spread more stories of kindness and courage to people who need to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another inspiring story. Together, we can create a community that believes in helping others and taking chances on what's right. Speaking of inspiring stories, there's an amazing video appearing on your screen right now that you absolutely need to watch next. Click on it to continue this journey with us. Remember, sometimes the worst day of your life is just the beginning of your greatest chapter. Keep being kind, keep taking chances, and keep believing that good things happen to good people. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.